Hello? Oh, hey, Mom, how are you? Oh, no, what's the matter? What's happened to him? Oh, no. Oh, no. I was shocked when I got that phone call. One that nobody ever wants or ever really expects to get. There's just so many feelings that I really want to share. I just want to be there. Okay. Okay, well, we'll see you soon. Mom, I love you. My dad was fighting for every breath of life, and it didn't look very hopeful. Even though we lived 600 miles apart and only saw each other on holidays, at least we were on the same planet. And we could pick up the phone and say hello. The likelihood of losing all that seemed almost impossible to grasp. Dear Dad, I'm so sorry to hear about what you're going through. I know you're rugged, but you gave us a good scare. Dear Dad, I'm writing you this letter because I don't know if I'll ever see you again, yet I have so much I want to say. Dad, do you remember several years ago when I was still grieving over the death of Suzanne? I found a great deal of comfort in some books I was reading about dying. It was at that time that I met a doctor of psychiatry, a researcher named Dr. Raymond Moody. I'm sending a copy of a book that he wrote, which was a great deal of help to me then. Dr. Moody has observed a pattern that occurs in people the world over, regardless of their culture or religion.
As a matter of fact, the prior religious beliefs or background of the person doesn't seem to have much to do with whether or not they have an experience and even the content of the experience. Mm-hmm. We've even had people who say that prior to their experience they were atheists or agnostics who have very beautiful and full-blown near-death experiences.
Really? And do they remain atheist and agnostic?
Not at all. Once they come back, they tell us that they're totally transformed and they have no more doubt whatsoever that there is a God and that there is a life after death.
It's about his research on the stories of people who have approached death, many of whom actually had the experience of dying and then were revived and lived to tell about it.
What happened is I felt like I'd been hit by a train. But what had happened was I was talking on the phone, holding the telephone like this. The lightning came down the phone line, entered my neck. It went through my spine, threw me up in the air. As it threw me in the air, it knocked me out of my shoes and welded the nails in the heels of my shoes to the nails in the floor, which is how I was grounded and I didn't explode.
Before I shot myself, I measured like we did in CPR to find where the heart was. And that's where I just took the barrel and put it up against my chest and pulled the trigger.
I had not responded to treatment. I was getting worse, and the doctor had come to see, and at this point, he says, I've lost her. She's gone. And I thought, well, who's he talking about? But just before this, I had been in terrible pain. I was just hurting so bad, I wanted to get away from it.
15 minutes before I was to be picked up by a Jeep, I was discovered to have a temperature of 106.5, and instead of waiting for the Jeep, the captain in charge of the ward sent me over to X-ray, and the last thing I remember was the captain in charge of the X-ray asking if I thought I could stand up long enough for them to get a picture of my chest. And I remember hearing that X-ray making that peculiar whirring sound and then a click, and I'm told that I collapsed in a heap.
This wasn't a typical bee sting because I quickly realized that there was a problem. And I tried to telephone someone for help. The rest of the ranger station was about 3 miles in, and I tried to telephone my boss to send some help, and I fell and went unconscious. And luckily, from what I understand, he drove through. My boss drove through a little while later and noticed that I normally just waved to him as he came by, and I was lying down on the floor, and he called the ambulance.
I was a dissident in Soviet Union, and I had an invitation from United States. In 1975, I received this invitation. In 1976, I was given the exit visa, and I was leaving for New York that day, and I was coming to take my passport, and I was ready to fly. My family was already in airport waiting for me. At that time, on sidewalk, I was moved over or run over by car. It was fabricated by KGB. They wanted to kill me and not to let me go. And I was taken to hospital. Doctors did anything they could to help me, but I was declared dead.
This is pretty much all over the world. We found this common pattern. They tell us that at this point where their doctor says they are dead, that they may actually hear the physician say, oh my, he's dead, or we've lost her, or something like that. And they say that from their perspective, actually, they still feel very much alive. Indeed, their consciousness is heightened. And they tell us that they seem to leave their physical bodies. They say that they float up, typically right above the bed in the operating room or the emergency room, and they look down and they can see their own physical bodies lying on the bed down below.
I was above my body. I was floating, and there were people around me, except I didn't realize that that person there was me.
Then all of a sudden I heard this statement, he's gone, he's gone. And it was the paramedic making that statement to the driver. At that point, I was standing behind the paramedic. I was watching him work on my body.
And suddenly there was commotion beneath me, and then I started noticing all of the people underneath me, and the EMS workers were pushing the stretcher down the hall, and I really wasn't concerned with my body. I was more concerned with, there were a couple of plainclothes policemen over where the guns were, and one of them was wrong about something, and I was trying to tell him that he was wrong.
I could see the soldiers and the nurses and the doctors, but they could not see me. And I went from ward to ward, bed to bed, trying to find a soldier that I thought that looked like me lying in the bed. I was becoming more and more desperate because, as I say, I could see these human beings, but I could not communicate with them. Finally, I went into this little isolated ward room. And sure enough, lying in the bed with the sheet pulled up over the head was this body that I had to recognize as me because it had my fraternity ring on its finger.
And there was this slight buzzing at the ear, and I felt myself pop out of the body. I don't know how I came out. I was just suddenly out of the body. And I sat down on the head of the bed a minute to look around. Then I felt myself float up to the ceiling, and I was looking down, and he said, she's gone. And I couldn't believe it, and I thought, well, who's gone? And I was trying to look down to see. And I felt presences with me. Guardian angels is what they were, but I called them guides.
I was suddenly looking at this light that seemed to be in the corner of the room. But the first thing I thought was, where did you come from? And she said, I've always been here, but you weren't able to see me before. The reason I use she is because she emanated feelings of selflessness, love, all-consuming love, understanding, kindness, And those were attributes that I thought of as being feminine.
After a while in this, they say that they begin to feel an indescribable feeling of bliss, that it's something that transcends words, that we can't put it into the language that we have in everyday life. One man, for instance, told me that although he was in great pain in his chest prior to leaving his body, as soon as he left his body, that he was overcome with a tremendous sense of joy and peace, a kind of ecstasy.
There was absolute freedom of your soul and body, and this amazed me. And this was very interesting too. I was happy to be in such experience because I could see their thoughts. I could see everything what was happening. I could smell. I could hear, and I could see their thoughts. This was the main thing what was very, very making me happy and proud. I don't know this word is good to use here or not, but I'm proud of that I can see their thoughts.
But I can remember that it felt very exciting to be above and to be out and looking down and not threatening at all.
Then I knew I was supposed to be keeping up with my body, so I followed my body through the hall and out the front door. And there's something about being outside when you're out of your body, but when I got outside, it was just wonderful. But it seemed like I was always just kind of looking through the ambulance because I was enjoying being outside. It's really kind of a nice experience with the lights and everything and the feeling of lightness.
As I have come out, I'm in no pain, but I'm also just free of everything. I'm no one's wife, mother, or daughter. I'm just myself alone.
I have the distinct memory of always trying to look at myself and thinking how much better looking I thought I was than that. Because this guy was ugly, he was in trouble, and he had these blue lines all down his face. And I was happy, truly happy, to be away from that body. They could have it. And I did not feel one bit of remorse or sadness, no matter what had happened.
But it was not bothering me. I saw my body and I hated it, and I didn't want to come to my body back.
It looked like this sort of feeble, sick person. And it didn't dawn on me until it seemed like many minutes later, I'm sure it was a flash, that that person was me. And that they were trying to revive me because I was dying. And in fact, my heart had stopped.
There's a skeptical part of me, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder sometimes whether or not this might just be people's hallucinations that they're going through, or just a natural shutting down process when the brain is dying.
Mm-hmm. I used to wonder about that myself, Peter. What has turned me around on that issue is that so often these patients are able to give us very correct descriptions of what was going on during the resuscitation from a point of view they couldn't have had from the perspective of that physical body lying on the table. For instance, my friend Kim, who works at a medical university out west, was telling me that she was involved in resuscitating a young patient named Maria. And Maria had been believed dead, but was successful revived, and when she came back to consciousness, my friend Kim happened to be standing there by her bedside. And Maria grabbed onto Kim and said, during the resuscitation, when she was out of her body, she drifted outside of the hospital entirely and saw an old shoe on a ledge on a window outside an upper floor of the hospital. And Kim was actually able to go there and to verify that the shoe was there exactly as the